What's up, you hurricane humping hoebag whores? It's your boy Jordan. I bet this ain't the first time something named Ian made you all wet, huh? Well, it's time to get into week three, the real week three. The last video was labeled week three, it was week two. That just kind of shows what type of week I was fucking having. But as this storm approaches, I thought it would be a good time to go ahead and review some stuff. Review our games real quick. Like I said, we make this more of an overview. Get into some in-depth stuff that you can't or that you might not look at on your own. And I also got some power rankings for you, and I'll explain that in a little bit. It's not by opinion. Don't worry. I'm not gonna jinx anybody by saying, hey, you're the best, just so you can, get fucked. But it's going to be based on factual numbers, basically just the highest scoring teams, because that's what matters in fantasy, right? So let's get right into it. Again, I wouldn't exactly say there was a lot of games of the week necessarily. There were some one touchdown games, some 7-point games that we had, and that's what I'll start with. Divisional games, Sam and Manny. Sam wins by a touchdown, 121 to 114. And the difference in this one that made Sam 2-1 and Manny 1-2 is J-Rob. And this is kind of a theme across these games. It was kind of weird. J-Rob was the only player from either side to score more than 20 points, and he had 27. So, moving on to the second game. Hector improves to 3-0 with a one touchdown win in a divisional game, 98 to 91, versus Sahid, who is also undefeated at the time. He is now 2-1. Congrats to Sahid, getting a much better start than he did last year and really previously for a little bit. So I know 2-1 isn't disappointing, even though this game might have been. But the difference in this one was Josh Allen. He was the only player to score more than 16 points. So again, with that theme where we have like one star of the game, but a low scoring game overall because nobody else did jack shit. Josh Allen got 30 points by himself, and again, no other players got more than 16. I think only one actually got 16 from either side. Next up, Alex with the $10 win yet again. So far it's been the Alex and Sam show, Jesus Christ. 153.5 to 105 over Gus, and he did it shorthanded. Just goes to show how strong his team is right now, which we will get into in a little bit. He wins the $10, like I said. He moves to 3-0 and is an absolute force in the league, let alone the division. And I thought that it might help me to get out of the top division, but nope. It's not exactly fun having to be in a division with Alex. Me and Alex have a pretty long history. We've been in the league for a while, and we've had some epic matches. But he's also had some epic teams that have absolutely wiped the floor with me and with his other division mates as well. So we'll get into more how the league is set up. But the difference here is obviously the stack that he has with Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. 46 points from Lamar Jackson. Andrews had 28. That's 74 points. In case you're checking, you only needed 31 or 32 more points to beat Gus from there. So after having two players and then needing 32 points across 8 other positions, you only need to average 4 points per position just to win that game because of how low Gus scored. So that was the difference for sure in that one. Next up, Jeff improves to 2-1 with a 138 to 99.5 victory over Lewis. Lewis doesn't break the hundo mark, barely. He moves to 0-3. Lewis is back to his old standard of bringing up the rear in the league. Unfortunately, he couldn't build on the success he's had the past couple seasons, but hopefully he'll make some moves. But the difference here is definitely Devontae Smith, keeping with the trend we had before. He was the only player to score over 20 yet again. 31.5 points. So he went well over that, but nobody else in the game scored more than 20. All right. Another divisional matchup. Joel with the 119 to 86 win over Carlos. Joel goes to 2-1. Carlos, or I guess maybe now we're getting back to the Carlos version of Carlos, moves to 0-3. The difference here, hate to bring this up, Carlos, but Joel only scored 119 points. You only scored 86, and you had 69 points on your bench. Now, I'm not saying that it was a given to start all of those guys, but I saw who you started instead, and it's questionable. You sat Olave, Boyd I could get, Dubs, I mean, I don't know. That was iffy. I like Dobbs, and I'm not sure if I would have started him against the Bucks, but it's not like A-Rod had anywhere else to go. So keep in mind, let this be a reminder. Not saying Carlos didn't. I'm not sure, but keep up with the news as it leads up to the games, because it was very clear that they had said they were going to get Dobbs more involved, especially since Watson and who else was out? Lazard was in, but there was some. I don't think it was Cobb, but there was a couple other players out. I know Watson was out, and they were saying they're going to get Dobbs more involved. So you got to pay attention to stuff like that because could have made a difference. Two of those players would have made the difference for sure. But nonetheless, he moves to 0-3, and while 69 is a nice number, it's not a good one to have on your bench split between three players. So, moving on from there, last, but in my opinion not least, I finally got my first win of the year. I moved to 1-2. Kyle falls to 1-2. We get to play again here. It's actually one of two repeat games or repeat weeks that we have, and because also Carlos and Joel play again. I won 146 to 127. The difference was the QB and kicker. All the other positional groups, we were within a couple points of each other, from flex to wide receiver to running back. Even defense was within a couple of points. But I outscored him at quarterback 29 to 16 and kicker 12 to 4, and that really was the difference in our ball game. So, as we're looking back, let's take a look at our top scorers by position in week 3 and then also to date. So, in week 3, top scoring quarterbacks: Lamar Jackson 46 points, Hurts 31 points, Josh Allen with 30. Got Burrow at 29, T-Law 26, and then Geno and Carr tied with 22. All right, that was for week 3. Now to date, Lamar Jackson is still number 1, but Allen and Hurts are flipped. Josh Allen is actually number 2 overall so far. Jalen Hurts is 3. Tua is still 4. He had such a huge game that in week 2 that week 3 didn't bring him down much. He's still 4th highest for the season. Patrick Mahomes at 5th, and Carson Wentz at 6th. Top 6 QB. All right, running back. Week 3, Khalil Herbert, 36 points. Jamal Williams, 28. J-Rob, 27. Derrick Henry with 26. Tied at 26 with Cordero Patterson at 26. Saquon, 24. D. Single, 23. Chubb and Ramondre Stevenson at 21. Dameon Pierce, 20, Chase Edmonds, 19, and Melvin Gordon, 17, outscoring Javonte Williams, his teammate. But for the year, Chubb is number 1. All right, Saquon's number 2, J-Rob is still number 3, Patterson is 4th, Swift is 5th, CEH is 6th, J-Will is 7th, Khalil Herbert is 8th, Jonathan Taylor is 9th right now, CMC is 10th. Aaron Jones is 11th, and Derrick Henry is 12th. Who would have called that after 3 weeks? Now, look, it's 3 weeks, all right? So one outlier game, a.k.a. Khalil Herbert, Jamal Williams, can really boost those numbers, especially since running back has been really, really hit or miss so far this year. You got your studs that you knew would do well, Chubb, Saquon, but then you have your surprises, J-Rob, Cordero Patterson still continuing to do well. But then, Herbert and J-Will, I mean, just having that one game to put them in the top 12 like that is surprising. And it's going to show how variable the running back position is when it comes to fantasy. You think you know, but you really, really don't. Who would have thought that what some could have argued as 4 of the top backs in fantasy to be drafted would be, technically speaking, back-end running back ones? That's kind of surprising. So, moving on, wide receiver. Now, this is not surprising. Cream of the crop. The cream rises to the top. All right. For week 3, we got Devontae Smith, 31.5. Got Mac Hollins with 30, who had some outlier games. When I say it's not surprising, I mean overall. Week 3 did have some surprises. Just going to Hollywood Brown, 29. Amari Cooper, 24. Olave with 24. Carlos's bench, of course. Russell Gage, 24. Boyd, 24. Zay Jones, 24. A lot of 24s, huh? Laviska Shenault snuck in at ninth. CeeDee Lamb, 22. Devontae Parker. And then Romeo Doubs with 12. So, hate to rub it in, Carlos, but yes, you had 3 of the top 12 wide receivers. You had 3 wide receiver ones for week 3 riding Pine, just to remind you. Again, not to say that you need to go and throw those guys in your starting lineup no matter what, but pay attention because you're 0-3 and you have players. You got players. So it's going to take some analyzing and some predicting. And, you know, if you're already doing it, you need to do it better, basically. So you can turn from car loss back into car win, all right? Because it's still week 3. Everybody still has a chance here, all right? And I'm going to get into week 4 and how that's really a kind of a crutch or a turning point along with week 5 because of how different records feel, all right? Overall, wide receiver 1 is Diggs. Wide receiver 2 is Kupp. If that rings a bell for any reason, it's because Sam has both of them. He has the top 2 wide receivers in the league and the number 3 overall running back. That is why his team is good. Kudos to him. He drafted a good team. He took chances. Sam has always been pretty good. He's been hovering. He finally got his championship, and now he's all full of himself, and he's backing it up. So, year 2 to defend the title is going pretty well for him so far. After Diggs and Kupp, we got Waddle. St. Brown, we got Hill, Kirk, A.J. Brown, Hollywood, Justin Jefferson, still hanging on in the top 10 despite 2 bad weeks in a row. Devontae Adams, Coop, and Garrett Wilson at 12. So, let's get into power rankings. Like I said, this was really just an order of who scored the most points after 3 weeks. Now, this is not an order of record. It's not because you will actually see that there are some teams that have worse records that have scored higher because there is some luck of the draw. Who you play matters. If you played Alex 3 weeks in a row, it doesn't matter how many points you scored, you pretty much were guaranteed to lose. Same with Sam. So it just depends on who you played as well. So going for the power rankings, who has scored the most points, and I'm giving you the average per game because that's really what matters here. You know how much you've been scoring, and I'm going to kind of give you the cutoff after the top 6, which is how many make the playoffs to see where you're at. Are you above or below that average, all right? Alex is number 1, of course, 173 points per game. Sam, a distant second, 157. For those keeping track, that's 16 points less per game. Basically, as good as Sam is doing, Alex is scoring him a good flex or a good wide receiver score more than him. All right. Manny is at 135.3. Kyle has scored 1 less point than Manny overall, so he's at 135 even. Jeff at 131, and Gus rounds out the top half, 129.3. So, considering 7th place is Hector at 128.7, that 128 to 129 average is what you want to be over. Generally speaking, for our league, it's been about 130 points, 120 to 130 points is the average. Now, there's been some very big swings, as you've seen with this past week. There are at least 3 games where only one player out of both teams scored more than 20 points. There's been some really high scores. Sam had over 200 last week. Alex has been killing it lately. You've had some low scores. This week, 153.5 was enough to win it. I didn't even realize I came close to winning the top score this week because 146 isn't that much higher than the league average. That's why those are outliers. But the average is typically around 125 to 130 is where you want to be at least aiming for, if not aiming to exceed. Exceeding that is going to be difficult unless you have really, really good players who have broken out, like Alex and Sam. All right, so after 7th with Hector, and I got to give kudos to Hector here too. He's 3-0. Typically what we see out of Hector is a lot of scoring, but him getting unlucky and being like 1-2 or 2-1 even sometimes, but still kudos to him starting out 3-0, even though he's not one of the higher scorers. He's getting the luck on his side, so if he gets the scoring up, then maybe those two mesh and he gets where he wants to be. Saheed, 8th place with 126. Carlos, 121. Now remember I said it was like 125, 120-ish to 130 is the average, so after you get under 120 is where you either need to look at making some moves or some outliers could have dragged you down. Like, I'm not completely upset with my team. I don't like my record. I like who I have. but I've only scored 117 points. I scored less than Carlos, who is 0-3. I had a really fucking bad week last week, which tanked me. So that's part of the reason why. But you do have to do some soul searching. Are you happy with your team? Do you want to make changes? How much of a change do you want to make? All those types of things. Joel then goes to 106, and last, and unfortunately least, is Lewis. 104 points per game. That is his average right now. And he didn't even score his average last time. So keep that in mind. That is where we are at with the power rankings from Alex to Lewis, 1st through 12th. And if you notice, it's echoing last year. The top 2 teams, yet again, involve Sam and Alex, but they are no longer in the same division, which makes this week a lot of fucking fun because they're playing for the one time that they're going to this week, or this year. They are playing this week, and it is Alex 3-0 versus Sam at 2-1. Sam is favored by about 1 point right now. All right. I play Kyle again. Kyle is favored by 16. I won this past week. Gus versus Manny, round 2, another divisional matchup. They are both 1-2. Right now, Manny is favored by 15, but Gus is missing a player to plug in as a starter. We already went over Sam and Alex. That might be a game of the week. Could be a very high-scoring game. Winner of that game could get another $10. Lewis versus Saeed, another divisional matchup. Saeed is favored by 7. And the last time that they played was in week 1, and Saeed won by 5. All right. Also, back to Gus and Manny. They did play in week 1 as well. That was a great game. That was game of the year probably so far. Gus won by 1 point back in week 1. So this is round 2 for them as well. Hector and Jeff, non-divisional game. Hector is favored by 6. And then last but not least, round 2, repeat again for Carlos and Joel. Carlos is favored by 13 right now. Even though he's 0-3, he's favored to get his first win this week against Joel, and that'd be a good time. And why do I say week 4 is such a big week, in my opinion, is because the records will make you feel very different. If you're 0-3 right now, you still feel like you might be able to make a run. You can still get some things done, make some trades. Things can still happen. Teams make the playoffs with 6 losses, 7 losses sometimes, depending on their division and the rest of the teams around them in tiebreakers. So 0-4 feels a hell of a lot different. Not saying you can't make a run, but your margin for error is slim to none. Not to mention, we also haven't even gotten into the bye weeks yet, which means you're going to end up having to put some uncomfortable players in your flex spot, in your wide receiver, running back, depending on how your team is set up. So it's definitely something you're going to have to pay attention to as the time comes up. But week 4 and 5 are big because they are the last non-bye weeks that we're going to have before shit hits the fan. And it is not fun because, as you all know, this is a very deep league. So it's going to take a lot of concentration and focus to get through these bye weeks, especially for those teams that are not doing as well as others. All right. That's also when upsets can happen, when teams like Alex and Sam might have some choice players on bye. So if you get lucky and play them, then congratulations, you might have something there. But we'll have to see how it goes. 4-0 definitely feels a hell of a lot better than 3-0. 3-1 feels a hell of a lot better than 2-2. But 2-2, you still have hope. I mean, that's the thing, is when you have the different types of records at week 3, which is 3-0, 2-1, 1-2, 0-3, you still have hope. You still have worries at any record that you could have, except for 3-0 maybe. But once you get to week 4, that's when shit can start to hit the fan. 4-0, you're feeling pretty good. 3-1, you feel good. 2-2, you feel like you're on the fence. You could go either way. But then once you get to 1-3 and 0-4, you got to make some changes. You got to do something. So, that being said, I wish everybody luck this week in the games, but more importantly, be safe with this storm. It's a serious one. I hope everybody is all right. Check in. We'll all make sure everybody's okay. If anybody needs anything, hopefully somebody's close enough to help you, because I know we all live all over the place. Of course, in a pinch, if there's ever an emergency or anything, we're all family. We'll do anything we can to help. But I hope everybody stays safe, take this thing seriously, and peace, bitches.